and the long sides running east and west. Okay, now I'm guessing I'm probably about a third of the way through the property at this point. Just going to be careful here. There could be some creeks or something under the snow. I don't want to break through into anything like that. I would have thought I needed snowshoes, and probably a week ago I would have needed snowshoes to get this far. But I'm doing fine just with my winter boots. That's what we wear up here. And so now, again, I don't want to make you seasick. Facing north, on following the road, panning to the west and south. Okay, and these could also be building lots, and then panning to the east. And you see we have sort of clearings and then areas that are a lot more heavily forested. So people are going to have to use an iterative process. Don't you love that word, iterative? You're going to have to use an iterative process to locate their homes, because it's not all cookie cutter. It's not like building on what used to be just farm fields where it's all flat and open, obviously. So this is interesting. This is the road I'm on, right? Looking, that's probably northwest at this point. And I'm noticing we have another roadway coming in this direction. I suspect that's a big circle. Remember I showed you back there that the road branched off and forked? And probably that road does a big half circle and then comes back here. All right. So now I'm continuing back into the property. And let's see. I would say I can't see the sun because it's a very gray day, but I wouldn't be surprised if I was going west or northwest at this point. Now we're coming up to a big clearing. If I were to purchase land in this property, I'd be quite interested in being back here, actually. I don't know, it'd be tempting to be near the front. I think it would be less buggy up there. One of the things I plan to do is come back here in the spring and see just how bad it is for bugs. We have mosquitoes, black flies, and the ones that bother me the most are the deer flies. When they bite, they take out a chunk of meat. They're terrible. I want to make sure I'm not getting into something unbearable. But we do have these clearings. So this would be another area that would be really lend itself to building homes. Or see where that big tree is? This clearing would be a great spot, I think, for a big community center. It's flat, relatively flat. It looks like there may actually be a layer of soil here and not just the Precambrian shield. Or we could turn this into an area for farming. But this would be a natural place to have a well, a community center or gathering spot in a big structure, big building back here, well away from the highway. I think that would be pretty cool. Oh, I see some snowmobile tracks here. Somebody turned their snowmobile around. Interestingly, now we're going downhill, still following the trail. Now I think I'm probably going more in a north direction. And you can see now we're going down into a large swale or small valley. And there's hillside with trees on it just past, that you can see past those treetops there. I think our property, the Thrive property, stops before that. It's funny, I walked this path in the summer. I don't remember this much at all. Now, I guess you could have homes in here, but I think we're now entering, like, we're definitely in the back half, the north half of the property. We might even be in the northern third of it at this point. And I would say this area lends itself a bit less to home building. Not that it couldn't be done, but it would be, I think it would be a different kind of home you might build back here. All right, we're coming up to a very interesting part of the land that we all need to be knowledgeable about. I'll point that out when we come to it. But it's interesting, somebody has planted a bunch of trees along here. So these will eventually become big pine trees in a few years. We might have to alter the roadway here because those will start to overwhelm the path. Here we have some trees that look like they've snapped off in a recent windstorm. Sometimes when you see fresh cuts like that, it's beavers. And there's a lot of beavers around here. We have wolves, coyotes, bears, a lot of deer. We even have moose here. They're a little rarer, more rare, but we have rabbits and groundhogs and weasels and all those kinds of things. Okay, so this is the next important feature I wanted to show you. This is a little footbridge. I don't think a car could make it over there, but something like a golf cart could. If I were to buy in here, I'd probably end up buying a golf cart. So I'm just adjusting my fingers here in the camera. I'm wearing gloves because it's still cold. That's looking to the north. If I look to the west, there's a creek. So we have flowing water even in the dead of winter. This will ice over more when it gets colder, but for now it's exposed, and we have this pond. This is different than the water that I'm hoping to show you at the back of the property. But this is kind of a creek that flows from the east to the west. And it's probably, I don't know, 1.5, 2 feet deep, maybe 3 feet deep at the deepest spot. I happen to remember that in the summer, there's a lot of reeds that cover this up, and this would be a place that would tend to have a lot of mosquitoes. So I probably wouldn't build a house close to this. I think we're now fully in the area on the property that we would like to leave wild. Now we might have some structures in here. We might have, there's all kinds of things we can do. But I think basically you'll see this on the map. Once we cross that footbridge and we're heading back north, I think we're well outside the residential part of the community, unless somebody wants to build a tree house kind of a thing or a remote cabin. But who knows? We might decide we want to leave this area pristine. I know that there are thoughts to do food foraging in the forest and gathering berries, maybe some beekeeping and creating honey, harvesting honey, mushrooms like chaga and other kinds of mushrooms. Again, I'll stop for a sec, catch my breath. Looking back, we're about 50 yards, 50 meters from that bridge. And it's really lovely here. It's really quiet and quite pristine. So I can still see tracks from snowmobiles. I'm not sure at what point this becomes Crown land. Maybe we'll see some kind of surveyor's mark or a sign or something. Now, I don't know if my battery's going to run out or if I'm going to run out of space on the video camera. I shouldn't. I have a 32 gigabyte, or maybe it's megabyte, SD card here, so we should be okay. But even if this camera stopped working right now, I've shown you most of what I wanted to show. Sorry, I'm just stepping over some rough land here. Whew. Gotta watch my step. You see down there, you see those breaks in the snow? That's where some water is flowing. A bit of a depression at the edge of the road carved out by water. I don't want to have my foot go through the snow into something like that. Okay, I'm definitely walking uphill at this point. Getting a little bit winded. Just take a break from talking for a sec. Just pan around here. You could also set up cross-country skiing trails through here. It's excellent for snowshoeing. Certainly do some hunting back here when it's in season. I should mention that there are lakes nearby, like Caribou Lake, where if you have a boat, you could go and do some fishing. You could even fish from the side of the water. In fact, this whole area has a lot of freshwater lakes, so water is not a big problem in this part of the world. And I'm sure that we could drill some kind of deep well through the rock and have access to groundwater. Now, we must be coming up to the end of the property soon, but I'm hoping to find the lake, the small, I don't know whether to call it a lake or a pond, a large pond, but hoping to find it. I haven't seen anything on this walk yet that looks like either to the left or right that would have the pond or lake on it. One of the things we need to investigate in the spring is we need to test the water, and we need to find out whether it's a natural pond or lake, small lake or large pond, or whether it's a pond that's formed because beavers have built dams. And it's great to have the water either way. But one of the issues, if it is a beaver pond, is that the water could be contaminated. That doesn't mean it couldn't be purified, of course. But generally you don't want to drink that water or swim in it and get it in your mouth, because there's this disease called beaver fever, right? And you don't want to be getting that. Okay, I've come to a break in the road here. Just going to be careful where I step. Yuck. Yeah, it's I'm just showing you what I'm walking through here. You can see all these maple leaves. These are all fallen maple leaves. And so one thing that's worth noting that I just realized, panning around, you notice how the forest has changed. We don't have hardly any pine trees. There's one back there, but now it looks like we're in a big stand of maple trees. They look quite young, a lot of Canadians think of these areas as wilderness that's untouched, but I'd say there's a better than average chance that this used to be hardwood in here, and what this road is that we're on, this pathway, was probably an old logging road. And usually they built the logging roads over what used to be trails that the native people used, although not always. So this area might have been logged 70 years ago, 100 years ago, and they probably took out some old stands of large trees, because these trees only look 20 or 30 years old to me, 40 years old. So this is young growth forest. Interesting. There's a cloth here that might be tied there to signify that we've reached the end of the property. I don't know. I'd be kind of surprised if the property goes much longer than this, because I've been walking for a long time. Oh, and while I'm here, I'll just show you this outcropping of rock. This is one of the reasons you have to understand we have some constraints on this property. You see that? It's a big piece of limestone covered with moss and that kind of stuff. It's not realistic to imagine, unless you're going to use dynamite, that you're going to dig down into the ground here. It's all rock. That's why conventional farming isn't going to work here. So you have to do greenhouses, you have to do indoor farming or vertical farming or some other technology. And watch where I'm stepping here. Whoops. Yeah, my foot really went through there. But I've seen people build basements that are kind of above ground, made of cement blocks. And okay, I'm going to have to use my judgment here about continuing further. The road has suddenly got a lot rougher. It's very muddy, which speaks to the fact that there's probably a bit more soil here. But anyway, you could build a basement and you could pour the concrete over the uneven, like you could frame in a foundation, right? And you could use that to level out the land. I've seen people do that. So if you're on uneven Precambrian shield, or Canadian shield, you could level it out with liquid concrete and custom built wooden forms, and then that would give you, say, a big rectangular level platform to put down a floor, and then here I am risking my life for you guys. Hopefully this video won't be found in the spring with me screaming as I fall through the ice. I shouldn't even joke like that. But these are just pretty shallow ponds on the road. He says as he steps into a deep hole. Okay, I don't know. I don't know, guys, whether I should keep going, because the only reason I'm continuing to film at this point is I'm looking for that big beaver pond or small lake or whatever the heck it is. I know Dee Dee has a video of it from the summer, and I can share that with you. So it's not absolutely necessary to show it to you on this video, but just for my own curiosity, I'd like to see it. Now, let's get established again. Let's catch my breath here. Okay, so that's on the pathway or road looking south. If I go to the west and the north and the east, we're still in this maple forest. And speaking of maple, here's something cool that many of you who are not from this part of the world mightn't have seen before. This is obviously not working, but buckets like this you'll often see attached to maple trees, buckets that don't have holes in them. And they tap the trees and they insert a little spigot in the fall. Or is it the spring? I should know that. It must be the spring because the sap would be flowing down. Anyway, yeah, I think it's the spring. But what they do is they make maple syrup from that. They usually just heat it up and filter it, and then you get your famous Canadian syrup. Just stopping for a sec to undo my coat. I started off being chilly, and now I'm baking in here from all this walking and exercise. It doesn't seem that there's any rain or anything. Oh, isn't that interesting? Those look like wolf or coyote paw prints. You can see the claws at the front. I wonder if that's even a bear. If it's a bear, it's a really small bear. Man, I should have brought my bear spray with me. I would imagine the bears are all hibernating by now, but I'm not in any great danger or anything. We don't have grizzlies down here. Grizzlies are way up north. What we have here tend to be black bears. And don't get me wrong, a large black bear could do some damage, but they tend to run away from humans. You know, they're descended from generations of bears, right, that have been hunted. So I think it's in their DNA by this point. You know what's disturbing though? I just thought of this. These paw prints look pretty fresh. Now all I'd have to do is yell at a bear and it would probably run away. Now they might not be fresh because these paw prints may have been laid down before we had the big snowstorm in Christmas. And now that snow has melted. Okay, I gotta walk around this nonsense. Hope you're all enjoying this. This is something you're definitely not going to see in Costa Rica, is it? We're in a really different landscape here. Yeah, I'm just going to go a little further because I think we're well past the Thrive All property at this point. I'm just going to go a little further because I've never been this far before. I suspect we're on Crown land at this point. I'm just looking for that damn lake. If I don't find it in the next couple of minutes, I'm just gonna shut this off. But hey, you're on the adventure with me, right? I wish my whole team could be here with me. This is the best I can do, is to make a video. Hopefully this isn't too boring. Yeah, somebody's cut some trees down here that looks like a tree. This is very typical in this part of the world. See that? You've had a big tree fall. You can see the direction that the break was, and there's the tree there. It fell across the pathway, and probably one of the snowmobilers came and cut the parts that used to cross the pathway into logs and threw them to the side. That's what that is. Now, I can tell from that discolored snow there that there's water under there, so I'm going to kind of walk to the side. Something you all might not know is that snowmobiles can travel over open water for quite long distances as long as they don't stop. The thought of it scares the heck out of me. And every year a couple of snowmobilers go through the ice. But it's pretty common that they'll even have competitions in towns like Huntsville and whatever, where the snowmobilers go from the trail, hit the open water of a lake or river and shoot across it and hit the solid ice again. It's amazing. I never would have thought that, but that's what I'm told. Yeah, if I ever live in this spot or anything like it, definitely going to have to get a snowmobile. So that's facing south. Again, I think we're well past the Thrive boundary by this point. I'm just going to go around this bend because I have to be mindful of my time and the weather. We're going to have